Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, September 1st. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Fighting a wildfire is hard enough. Add to it triple-digit temperatures and rugged terrain, and it's quite the battle. Right now, several hundred firefighters are in southeast San Diego County taking on the destructive Border 32 fire near State Route 94 in the Barrett Junction area, roughly 3 miles north of the U.S.-Mexico border. Over 4,400 acres have burned, as well as 3 homes. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado shows us how firefighters and evacuees are dealing with the situation.
The Border 32 fire broke out on Wednesday afternoon along State Route 94 and exploded in a matter of hours. CAL FIRE San Diego Captain Frank Lococo says it was the perfect storm for the fire to take off.
Our goal is to keep those fires at 10 acres or less, but sometimes we have some elements that are beyond our control, and that's Mother Nature. So we experience, some substantial wind, that extreme heat, and then this topography and fire. When combined, all of that with substantial wind, it has the ability to grow exponentially really in a short amount of time. And that's how we saw a fire go from a couple of hundred acres to over 4,000.
CAL FIRE San Diego Chief Tony Meacham says 2 people were critically burned.
Last night, sadly, we had 2 people that were critically burned, 2nd and 3rd degree burns, that we treated and airlifted to the UCSD Regional Burn Center. While that was going on, our Border Patrol agents and sheriff's deputies and firefighters rescued an additional 5 people that had made their way to Highway 94 and were imminent peril.
San Diego County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher says it's critical for people to heed evacuation orders.
Please do not put our law enforcement and firefighters in the situation of not being able to appropriately respond to a fire because they are having to do emergency evacuations in an area where they have asked you and ordered you to leave.
But T-Bone, who's lived in Dulzura for over 22 years, says that after they closed the roads, communication broke down, and they're making no exceptions to let people through for critical needs.
They shut 94 down to where people can't even get home to their babies, their wives, their animals. I had to sleep at the car ride share parking lot at the Otay turnoff last night because they wouldn't let me home. And they wouldn't even let us know what was going on.
Apolonio Gilbert says he's lived in Dulzura for almost a decade, and this fire came out of nowhere and fast. He says he was first to alert everyone, and the evacuations came later, or as he puts it, not until everything got ugly.
Nos dijeron que nos teníamos que salir todos de allí, pero ya cuando estaba muy horrible todo. Cuando empezó la lumbre, que yo miré que empezó aquí donde está el puente, yo me fui luego y le avisé a toda la gente que se salieran.
He says since then, he hasn't been able to get in touch with anyone, not even with his wife, who was evacuated to the casino and had no idea was moved to Mountain Empire High School until we told him. And that was his point. He showed us on his phone. He says communication in the area has been a problem for a long time, but during emergency situations like these, things get a whole lot worse. He wondered if it would take a tragedy for things to improve.
Valemos lo mismo, pero para ellos no vale lo mismo. Valen más los del pueblo que los que estamos aquí.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Another flex alert in play right now as our county and the state deal with this lingering heat wave. We're being asked to cut back on electricity until 9 tonight. These record temperatures, they are exacerbated by drought conditions and, of course, helping fuel wildfires. Reporter Mike Valerio breaks down all the impacts the heat wave is having.
Right there you see the drop. They can be very effective.
Just above the fire line north of Los Angeles, Super scooper planes dive, skim a reservoir, and then drop thousands of gallons of water on the root fire.
Just craziness, firefighters left and right, the police here and there.
It's so far charred more than 5,200 acres near Interstate 5. Part of the freeway shut down. Evacuations are in effect, and just a day after it started, the fire is 12% contained.
All of us have been trying to outrun Mother Nature, but it's pretty clear that Mother Nature has outrun us.
Governor Gavin Newsom alerting California the state will be tested into early next week by wildfires, triple-digit heat, and the possibility of rolling blackouts statewide.
The problem that California faces on these hot days is almost entirely air conditioning.
Severin Borenstein is an energy and economics expert at UC Berkeley. Utilities are asking people to reduce energy consumption later in the day from 4 to 9 p.m. That's peak demand when there's less energy available from solar panels.
If we can get people to increase their thermostat settings just a few degrees, turning it from 75 to 78, that takes a huge load off the system.
Mike Valerio, KPBS News.
And at a time when air conditioning is greatly needed, many local students have had to do without inside the classroom. As KPBS's Jacob Ayer reports, that turned up the heat on one district to make sure cooler heads prevailed among parents, too.
Rancho Bernardo High School and Bernardo Heights Middle School have been back in session for 2 weeks, but recently their school days have been shortened. That's because the school's outdated HVAC system hasn't been producing consistent air conditioning, and the classrooms have been heating up.
I just know that everyone was complaining it, fanning themselves off with flashcards, and finding a way to step out of class and just get some air.
Mark Sladak is a senior at the high school who's noticed some improvements with the AC this week.
I know all of last week and the week before, classes were starting to take the class outside, try to get a breeze going, because the rooms were just like a humid sauna.
At first, the district brought in fans, and then they ordered portable AC units to bring temporary relief. Ruben Aris is the school district's Director of Facilities, Maintenance, and Operations.
Our plant produced enough ice to adequately supply air for both sites, both high school and middle school, and we will have air up today.
It would cost $8 to $10 million to replace the old HVAC system. So as a short-term fix, the district has spent about $500,000 on backup solutions and a 2-month rental of a 600-ton chiller.
We have continuous air now due to our rental chiller. We do not need to depend on the fans nor HVAC single units. Those were just for emergency situations. Now that we have our rental chiller, our air flow is flowing.
As the chiller is being installed, both campuses are having students continue to only come for half-day schedules to minimize their exposure to the afternoon heat.
I just hope that the system doesn't crash again and we have to rely on just a simple little AC unit that might not support the whole class.
Aris expects all classroom AC units to be fully functioning by next week, with students returning to a normal school schedule. He says the district is exploring different proposals for long-term solutions to split and isolate the high school and middle school HVAC systems. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
And Jacob adds that all San Diego Unified School Districts now have air conditioning, according to an email from officials. As for when we could get a break from the heat, we'll have that in your weather forecast coming up. New COVID-19 booster shots targeting Omicron strains are ready to roll out. Today, the CDC endorsed the new shots made by Pfizer and Moderna, which contain half the regular vaccine and half protection against the BA4 and BA5 subvariants. The boosters have not yet finished human testing, but advisors decided that they are the best option to protect against a winter surge, and the director agreed. Meanwhile, San Diego County has officially been moved into the CDC's low COVID-19 activity level. The case rate per 100,000 people is 138.5, below the threshold of 200 per 100,000 to be moved down a level. And there are 6.5 new COVID hospitalizations per 100,000 people. County health officials say we may have reached the peak with monkeypox cases. A global outbreak is seeing 1,300 cases in California, with 290 here in our county. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman has more on the local response.
The county's latest monkeypox vaccine event was held in Chula Vista. 800 appointments were made available here, and they were all booked up in about 45 minutes.
Well, it says that the need is out there. The need is great, and people are just anxious to get scheduled.
Dr. Wilma Wooten is San Diego County's public health officer. She says the goal still remains to vaccinate everyone in the high-risk category, but supplies are limited. So far, the region has gotten about 6,000 vials of doses, while 5 times that is needed.
Now, we haven't received everything we've asked for, but we've gotten our allocations.
Anyone can contract monkeypox, and most people do not need to be hospitalized. It can cause flu-like symptoms along with painful rashes or lesions. Currently, infections are largely among men who have sex with men. The county estimates the at-risk population to be about 66,000 people. Doses are being stretched with a method that delivers a smaller amount of vaccine but still offers the same protection. Wooten says more supply from the state that will be used for vaccine events and go to local providers is coming next week.
Those numbers are higher than the prior allocation, so that's good news. But again, we'll share the exact numbers next week when we actually have the vaccines in hand.
Infections are mainly spreading through sex, although general close skin-to-skin contact is another form of transmission. Wooten says we may have seen infections peak locally in early August, similar to trends in statewide data.
CDPH's website, you will also see their epi curve, and it's showing very similar patterns in terms of the fact that we peaked, but we're on the downslope. But the numbers we are still seeing numbers every other day.
Wooten says they typically declare an outbreak over when there are no cases for twice the virus's incubation period. In this case, that's about 42 days. Despite local, state, and federal monkeypox emergency declarations, San Diego County is not getting any federal funding for its response, but Wooten says state officials just announced they will be offering some financial support. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And we have a special page on our website tracking the latest monkeypox news locally with our latest reporting and information on vaccines. Look for the link on our homepage, kpbs.org. San Diego State University President Adela de la Torre is again defending the university's handling of rape allegations against 3 former Aztec football players. But as KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us, her latest defense comes with a personal bombshell.
Our leadership team, our legal team, unequivocally, it was the right decision.
San Diego State President Adela de la Torre has defended the university's handling of the rape allegations made by a now 18-year-old woman against 3 members of last year's football team. The latest defense came at a meeting of the Associated Students of San Diego State on Wednesday. The San Diego Union Tribune was there and shared this footage with us. De la Torre dropped the bombshell when the cameras were not rolling, but the quote was captured by UT reporter Gary Robbins. She said, "The issue of sexual assault, sexual violence is very, very present. It is something that I have personally experienced, is something that lives with me day to day, and something that informs how I feel about this issue." We reached out for further comment from De la Torre. A university spokesperson responded that she was not scheduling media interviews at this time. We also reached out to the Associated Students leadership, but we were told they were in meetings all day. At one point, a student asked De la Torre if a message was being sent by the university that student athletes were valued more than others, though the alleged rape victim is not an SDSU student. De la Torre handed that one off to the university's vice president of Business and Financial Affairs, Jessica Rento.
So until the filing of the civil complaint that occurred last week, we did not have the confirmed names of suspects from the victim.
De la Torre also reiterated that the university did not launch its own investigation because San Diego PD asked them not to. The school has since gotten the green light to investigate and is moving forward with its own inquiry.
It was the right thing to allow the criminal investigation process occur unimpeded. And I would not be honest with you if I said I would change it just because of the media firestorm. One always has to do the right thing.
John Carroll, KPBS News.
Local water managers say San Diego County is mostly protected from the drought that's squeezing water supplies in California and the western United States. But KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says the region is not immune to the mega drought punishing the West.
San Diego County's Olivenhain Reservoir is an anomaly in the West. The man-made lake is pretty much full.
The reservoir is a 24,000 acre-foot reservoir that provides water to our aqueduct.
Nadir Beg says that's a year's worth of water for about 60,000 families. He's an operator here, moving water in and out of the reservoir located near Escondido. This lake was built to help the region cope if imported water gets cut off. San Diego County Water Authority officials say the emergency water is just one tool they've developed over 3 decades to keep local water taps running.
We are secure, but we still need to do our part because these hotter, drier conditions are our foreseeable future.
The authority's Kelly Rogers says raising the San Vicente Dam, building the Carlsbad desalination plant, and water rights deals with the Imperial Irrigation District all play a role. Rogers says the projects are expensive but vital.
It's like your retirement when you're younger. You're like, oh gosh, I may never need that, but when you're retired, you're like, wow, all of the investments are paying off.
But San Diego isn't completely insulated from a climate change-driven drought that is strangling water flows in the Colorado River Basin. The Bureau of Reclamation's commissioner says all of the West's main water sources are suffering. Camille Climlin-Toon painted the situation in stark terms during a Senate committee hearing in July.
Hydrologic variability, hotter temperatures leading to earlier snowmelt, dry soils, all translating into earlier and low runoff. This is coupled, as the committee has mentioned, with the lowest reservoir records on record.
The Bureau has twice called for Colorado River users to cut back the amount of water they take, and Toon told lawmakers more drastic cuts are needed.
Between 2 and 4 million acre-feet of additional conservation is needed just to protect critical levels in 2023.
The critical levels she's talking about are water levels in Lake Powell and Lake Mead, the West's largest reservoirs fed by the Colorado River. The Pacific Institute's Michael Cohen says both have been shrinking at unprecedented rates.
So we've seen since the drought began, really at the start of the year 2000, so already 23 years of drought, that we've lost about 170 feet of elevation at Lake Mead. And the forecasts are projecting that Lake Mead could drop even another 50 feet in the next 2 years.
That could put the system dangerously close to a condition that water managers call dead pool.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, that's not good. No, no, no. Oh, you're not going to walk that one off. Oh, that's so gross.
No, not the Ryan Reynolds dead pool. Dead pool happens when the lake's level drops below the valves which send water downriver to Arizona and California. Lake Mead is just 150 feet away from dead pool. If that happens, San Diego could lose half its drinking water. Cohen says the water rights the authority bought from the Imperial Valley would be worthless.
There's a chance that if the different Colorado River water users can't come to an agreement, that current rules will continue to apply, and that Lake Mead will continue to be drawn down, creating the crisis really that we're seeing right now, because people see this coming.
And while water managers may see the crisis coming, it's still hard to cut back. Cohen says California will probably end this year using more than its share of Colorado River water.
And most of that overuse is actually not coming from the irrigation district, it's coming from Metropolitan Water District. And that's, of course, because California itself is in a massive drought.
Metropolitan is the region's largest water wholesaler, serving Los Angeles and many surrounding water districts. The consequences of taking too much water now could be dire. Federal officials are giving water users a chance to determine where cuts will happen. If they can't, the federal government promises to make that decision for them. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Health experts are warning that the high heat is not only bad for your body, but can mess with your mind. A recent Gallup study found those who live in areas where the temperatures are hotter than usual are more susceptible for a lower sense of well-being. Researchers say older people and those in less economically advantaged areas appear to be affected more often, and that overall mental health worldwide could fall due to the climate crisis.
Our extended stretch of dry, hot weather will be with us right through the weekend. Sweltering conditions, they will be continuing. Along the coast from time to time, a little bit of cooling, but not much. That's right along the immediate coast. And moisture, really not much of it. A little bit coming back towards the mountains where there could be an isolated thunderstorm. So these are hot conditions. Please use common sense. You know, make sure you wear lightweight, loose-fitting clothing. Make sure you hydrate. Air conditioning, of course, is a must. And never leave pets and children unattended in the vehicle. Before you leave your car, always look over your shoulder. Make sure that things are all clear, the back seat. So with all this heat, the excessive heat warnings do continue. Temperature is tonight dropping down to the low 70s in the city. Partly cloudy skies. Kind of a warm, humid night. Down to 70 in Oceanside. El Cajon, the low tonight, 74. Ramona, 69. Borrego Springs stays in the low 80s. And we'll see lows close to 70, Mount Laguna and Campo. So the dangerous heat wave is going to be with us here right through the end of the week and through the weekend. There are some signs next week we may see a little bit of a cooling trend, but until then, it's hot. Little relief at the coast. Not really expecting a lot. So as we take a look at our weather for you tomorrow, it's hot. Temperature up to 100 in Ramona, 98 El Cajon, Escondido's at 96. San Diego hits 83 and Oceanside 85. Borrego Springs a sizzling day at 109 and Campos at 98. Looking at the future satellite and radar, scanty moisture out there. So you can see a few buildups in the mountains, perhaps a lonely storm, but that's really pushing it. Forecast next 5 days, it's hot at the coast, maybe a little relief coming next week. That's after the weekend. Inland areas sizzling away. Look at how hot it is, triple-digit heat. And as we head up to the mountains, it'll be very warm and dry. Just the isolated storm, a remote possibility. And as we take you out into the deserts, it's sizzling here into next week. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Mortgage rates are on the rise again. Freddie Mac reports a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage now averages 5.66%, slightly higher than the week before. The rate is nearly 3% higher than this time last year. Freddie Mac's chief economist says the Federal Reserve Chairman's aggressive stance on inflation helped drive mortgage rates higher and will likely lead to a slowdown in home sales and pressure to drop prices. And gas prices are continuing to decline at the pump just ahead of the Labor Day holiday weekend. Here in San Diego County, the average price of regular gas fell by a penny to $5.22 a gallon. That is the lowest amount since March 5th. And Americans are taking advantage. AAA is reporting an increase in travel bookings. Emily Schmidt has some travel tips if you'll be heading out of town.
It's the unofficial end of summer, and this holiday weekend, the number of Americans heading out of town is expected to climb as gas prices decline.
There likely will be more Americans hitting the road than what we've seen from earlier this summer.
According to AAA, domestic bookings for car, air, cruise, hotel, and tours for Labor Day weekend are up 22% compared to last year, with car rental rates up almost 32% compared to 2020. Experts say gas prices have fallen significantly from their summer peak, fueling demand for end-of-summer road trips.
This is the lowest we've seen prices in many months, so with summer rapidly closing, it likely will mean more Americans will be hitting the road for Labor Day than we otherwise would have seen if prices remained high.
Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy, has these 3 recommendations if you're driving to your destination. Plan ahead, drive during off-peak times, and avoid Friday and Monday afternoon and evening, which typically see highest traffic volume. And fuel up your tank when you spot cheap gas to avoid paying more at popular tourist spots.
Gas prices can fluctuate 20 to 50 cents a gallon simply by crossing a state line.
Meanwhile, some airports are bracing for for large crowds. Officials from Philadelphia International Airport say they are bracing for their busiest Labor Day since 2019. And travel experts say declining oil prices are leading to lower airfares and higher demand.
Certainly an important factor when it comes to airfare. And so this is why I think there are more tailwinds right now when it comes to travel prices than headwinds.
For today's Consumer Watch, I'm Emily Schmidt.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, we speak with a woman making history as the first Alaska Native elected to Congress. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's another look at today's top stories. A wildfire northwest of Tecate has burned over 4,400 acres, prompting road closures and forcing evacuations. It started yesterday afternoon off Barrett Lake Road near State Route 94, roughly 3 miles north of the border. And at last check, it was 5% contained. 3 homes, 3 RVs, and 6 other structures have been destroyed. Mountain Empire Unified and Hamul Dulzura Union school districts will be closed again tomorrow. And the heat wave sweeping across Southern California is threatening the state's power grid. For the second day, a statewide flex alert is in effect until 9 o'clock tonight, asking everyone to cut back on electricity during peak demand. Another one has been called for tomorrow as well. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.